What the fuck is up, everyone? Prison Miller here, back with another reviewing and rating every album series. So yes, I'm doing Kittie since their new album came out, I think a week or two ago. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. To tell you the truth, I was never a big fan of this band. To tell you the truth, yes, I've heard of them from years ago, but I didn't start listening to their discography until 2021. The reason why is because I think Market Punk wanted me to rank them back in the day. And my personal thoughts, to tell you the truth, this band is kind of hit or miss for me. I'm going to be honest with you. I never grew up with this band. How I've heard from them is mainly, I think one of the members from Kittie was dating Joey Jordison, who was the original drummer from Slipknot. R.I.P. to Joey Jordison. I think he dated one of the members from Kittie. I may be wrong, but I know he's really close to the members of that band, Joey Jordison. So, yeah. But besides all that, yes, from the rating from 0 out of 5 being the worst and 5 out of 5 being the best. And before I get started, I must let y'all know I'm not reviewing EPs, compilations, demos, or live albums. I'm only reviewing the studio albums only. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, starting up we got is Spit, released November 13th, 1999, with 2 singles released. Brackish released January 11th, 2000, and Charlotte released June 5th, 2000. And yeah, as you may know, Kittie is an all-female band, and this is a new metal album. To be honest with you, I know a lot of you people love this album, but for me, I'm just not a big fan. I mean, it's alright album. I don't think it's bad. The main problem is, I just don't like Morgan Lander's harsh vocals. Especially when he yabs, like that sound. I just don't like that for some reason. And I just don't like their attitude with this album. I mean, I know it's their lyrical themes like sex. I understand what they're trying to do is like female empowerment and all that. I somewhat understand that. I kind of do, and I do respect that, what they do. Be honest with you, I really do respect on what they were doing. But as for this album, mainly the lyrical content, it's just kind of cringe. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the song Johnny was cringy as fuck, to be honest with you. I never liked the song Johnny. And Do You Think I'm a Whore is kind of cringe too. But, and I mean, I understand what the lyrics is about, like female empowerment. I know Johnny's about a reaction to male domination of women. And it kind of sounds like uncomfortable. It kind of sounds weird. And all that. I mean, I understand. It's mainly new metal lyrics. It's mainly about all this topics, like bullying, sexism, hatred, ignorance, betrayal, and life experiences, which is pretty much you hear on typical new metal albums. But I'll admit, there's albums from this album did have some redeeming qualities. Like, I'll admit, Brackish and Paper Doll actually do hit. I actually do like those songs, as well as Charlotte. Charlotte did kind of hit too. So I'll give it that. Now, yeah, I know this may be controversial, but again, I'm going to say this. I did not grow up with this, so yeah, I mean, there's plenty of redeeming qualities here. I do like some riffs here and there, but the vocals from Morgan Lander, I mean, her clean vocals in this album, her clean vocals is fine. I don't mind her clean vocals in this album, but the harsh vocals, I just can't stand it, to tell you the truth. So yeah, I'm going to give this album a 2.5 out of 5. I definitely think this is an overrated album. I know this is Kittie's most popular album, but Just because it's the band's most popular doesn't automatically mean it's their best, to tell you the truth. I mean, again, I respect on what Kittie is trying to do with this album, with their female empowerment. I respect that, but the album doesn't really do a lot for me. So, but other than that, there's still some enjoyable moments here and there throughout this album, but I just find this album overrated. That's all. All right, next up we got is Oracle, released November 12th, 2001, with 3 singles released. What I Always Wanted, released October 9th. Run Like Hell, released, which is a Pink Floyd cover, released January 16th, 2002. And In Winter, released May 13th, 2002. Now, this album, kind of a bore fest, to tell you the truth. I mean, oh man, there's some songs that do hit, like Oracle, Mouthful of Poison, Pain, and that's about it. I mean, I do love some of this heavy riffs, and I'll say this, Morgan Lander's harsh vocals did improve, but the album itself, in general, is just a massive snooze fest, to tell you the truth. I did not care for their Pink Floyd cover, Run Like Hell. I do like the song Pink Lemonade. I do like that instrumental. I'll give it that. But the album itself, I mean, the production is alright, I guess. But I guess they try to sound like Slipknot's Iowa or something, or whatever the fuck. And it's just, well, despite the album was recorded before the album Iowa was released. But as the album itself, it's just, I mean, the album is a massive change from their previous, and not in quite a good way. Other than Morgan's improved vocals, it kind of sounds like a rip-off of Pantera. It's more like a groove metal sound than their new metal sound, and it just doesn't sound really great. But besides all the few songs of the albums I mentioned, the album is just lame, mediocre, and just, I don't know, it's lame. I would give this album a 2 out of 5. I know a lot of you people may love this album, but me, I don't. Again, I didn't listen to this band growing up. I was never a fan of Kittie, just to tell you the truth. I kind of want to do this since it's a lot of talked about, so yeah. Yeah, this album is just not very memorable to me, and I kind of don't see myself going back to it, except for a few songs that I've mentioned. Alrighty, next up we got is Until the End, released July 26, 2004, with only one single, Into the Darkness, released June 29th. And yes, we come to the point where this is Kittie's best album. Yeah, as some of you know, this album completely abandoned the new metal sound. It pretty much sounds like more of his groove metal, metalcore approach. And it sounds much heavier. And this is basically the better version of Oracle, to tell you the truth. It has more technical songwriting. It has heavier riffs. It has better vocals too. And I pretty much love all songs from this album. Look So Pretty's great. Career Suicide is an amazing song. Until the End's great. I like all songs. Pussy Sugar is an amazing fucking song. I'll give it that. So yeah, much heavier album than the first two. Much better vocals from Morgan Lander. And yeah, what else to say? Really great album. I don't know what else to say from start to finish. So yeah, I mean, definitely one of the best albums of... Sorry, I got distracted. Of 2004. It sounded much more proper. It's much more mature, and it has some more melody stuff too on their previous albums, such as it's got heavier riffs, it's got double bass drumming, it has much more time signature, and it has a little bit of guitar solos as well. And yeah, definitely a great album. So there's some exceptions on some songs too. With Into the Darkness has more harmony on this song than the others, and yeah, I give this album a 4 to 5. I definitely think this is the band's strongest album to date. And yeah, I would definitely defend this album. I think the production is well. I think the songwriting's great. And yeah, there's really nothing else to put into it. So, yeah, definitely a great album. Alrighty, next up we got is Funeral for Yesterday, released February 20th, 2007, with only 2 singles released. Funeral for Yesterday, released January 16th, and Breathe with There's No Date on there. What the fuck happened with this album? I mean, their last album went great, and now this album turned to a massive dog shit album. First of all, here's the main problem with this album. The mixing and production on this album is horrible. I do not like this clean vocals from Morgan Lander. She sounds like a fucking chipmunk. This is like almost as bad as Megadeth's Super Collider, with Dave sounding like a duck. Morgan Lander sounds like a chipmunk on clean vocals. And I don't like almost every single song, except maybe for like Slow Motion or Will to Live, and that's just it. I mean, they're okay songs, but they're not good. And yeah, what the hell, Kittie? What the fuck is this shit? It's just plus the album is so unoriginal. I mean, oh my god, every single song on here sounds the same. I don't know, I just don't want to talk about it. This is awful album. This album is just awful. I also remember looking back on my Kittie ranking, and I noticed I put this at the bottom. It still is. This is a fucking terrible record. What the fuck did I just listen to? I do not like that direction they were going to. They try to lean towards a standard heavy metal sound. I'll admit, there are some little bit of moments I don't mind. I do like some melodies on this album, and that's the only good thing about this album. So, yeah, fuck this record. I'm giving this album a very strong 1 out of 5, leaning towards a 0.5. This is a very terrible album. And, yeah, I also think this is their worst album, too. Holy shit, this is an awful album. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm moving on. Alrighty, next up we got is In the Black, released September 15th, 2009, with 3 singles. My Plague, released July 22nd, Cutthroat, released July 31st, and Sorrow I Know, released August 17th. And yes, this is a massive improvement over their god-awful previous album, Funeral for Yesterday. This is a much better album, In the Black. I mean, and honestly, this is probably their second best album, in my opinion, behind Until the End. There are a lot of great songs. My Plague, no, not the Slipknot song, My Plague. Cutthroat is an awesome song. Die My Darling, almost every single song except maybe some filler like Falling Down or Sleepwalking. Whiskey Love Song is pretty underrated, I'm not gonna lie. Ready Aim Right's good. Yeah, I like pretty much most of the songs. The production did improve from their previous album. It sounds more fresh. The chorus is pretty catchy, and I just like the riffs. And yeah, and I know there's some people saying that this is Kittie's strongest album to date, and I can see why. This is definitely one of their strongest albums. So I don't know what to say. This pretty much with Kittie's discography, they pretty much went up and down, with one album being good and another album being shit. And this is pretty much how I feel about most of Kittie's discography. I mean, their first 2 albums were kind of okay or mediocre. Until the End is definitely their strongest album. And then Funeral for Yesterday was utter dog shit. And this album definitely improved, in my opinion. Production's better. Morgan's clean vocals sounded better again. At least she no longer sounds like a chipmunk. And yeah, the guitar riffs are improved. Pretty much everything is improved. So yeah, definitely their second best album. I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely definitely a good album from start to finish. Probably their most underrated one too, I'm not going to lie. So yeah, I have to say this is one of their strongest albums to date. Alrighty, guys. Next up we got is I Failed You, released August 30th, 2011, with two singles. We Are the Lamb, released July 20th, and Empires Part 2. Now, I actually think this is quite a solid album. My main problem with it is the songwriting is kind of predictable, but I do like its production. But there's plenty of songs that actually do kind of hit. I think I put it as their second worst, but not really anymore. I thought We Are the Lamb did hit a lot. I do like that song. Empire's Part 1, which is basically the intro, and it's pretty much an instrumental to Empire's Part 2. I definitely do enjoy that one. Whispered Deaths is great. I do love I Failed You, which is the opening track, which is a 2-minute song, and it did hit a lot. But yeah, as for the rest, it kind of sounds like a B-side to their previous album, In the Black, but it sounds pretty solid, I'm not going to lie. It does have plenty of filler here and there, but most of it is quite enjoyable in the most part. So yeah, I'm not going to give this a more detailed review on this album. It's just another album, but again, it's decent, it's solid, and as some may know, this is the band's last temporarily final album. As some may know, their next album won't come out until this year. This album came out in 2011, as some may know. So, and I do like the closing track, Time Never Heals. I definitely kind of think it's a great way to close the temporarily final album by them. But yeah, other than that, I do think it's a decent album overall. So I give this a 3 out of 5. I do think it's a pretty decent album, and I'm just going to go ahead and not say anything and move on to the next one. Alright, next up we got Fire, released June 21st, 2024, with 4 singles. Eyes Wide Open, released February 14th. We Are Shadows, released April 4th. Vultures, released May 8th. And One Foot in the Grave, released May 30th. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is their worst since Funeral to Yesterday. I did not like this album to begin with. Why? It's very, very generic album. Almost every single song on here sounds the same. The guitar riff sounds the same. It's just really not that original. Yes, I know, it's their first album in 13 years, but guess what? It's bore fest. It's disappointing. Since they've been putting out some bangers on their last 2 albums, but this album, not really. I mean, yes, production is great. Morgan Lander's vocals is decent, but the album in general, it's just nothing. Okay, let's say this. It's one of those albums you do verse, hook, and then you get either a bridge or a guitar solo, and then a fucking hook, and that's it. That's pretty much every song sounds like. And I just don't want a standard fucking song when I hear, like, albums. Bring in something, I mean, it's okay to have those once in a while, but not so fucking repetitive. Like, seriously. It comes to the point where the song One Foot in the Grave is basically Kittie's Angel and the Gambler. I pretty much consider most of the songs to be Iron Maiden's Angel and the Gambler, except it's not as long. And I'll say the song Grime is kind of a somewhat decent song. The breakdown is kind of cool, but I wouldn't call it good. And let's talk about the song Are You Entertained? What the hell was that? I mean, First of all, it sounds like comes to a point where it sounds like Five Finger Death Punch tries to write a Kittie song with Morgan Lander as guest vocals. That's what it sounds like. It kind of sounds like one of those bro metal type songs. And as let me know, yeah, I did not like this. And just so you guys know, I've listened to this album like 6 times and nothing is grabbing me. Yes, I listened to it 6 times. Nothing has changed. The tracks aren't really memorable. It's boring. It's very formulaic. And the album itself is so fucking predictable. This is their most predictable album to date. So yeah, guys, I'm not feeling this album at all. I'm going to give this a 1.5 out of 5. It's bad, guys. I mean, if you guys like this album, more power to you. Keep listening to it. But for me, it's not good. I know a lot of people said this is their strongest album in a long time. I disagree. I think this is their second worst album behind Funeral of Yesterday. So, yeah, I think this is their most boring album. It's their most predictable. I mean, I'll say this. It's not as bad as the god-awful album Funeral for Yesterday, but the album itself is just bad. Sorry, I do not like this album. It's more boring than Static X's latest album. Trust me, it's more boring than their last album. So yeah, probably the most boring album of 2024, to be honest. Sorry, I don't like this album. Alright guys, so that is my controversial video of reviewing and rating every Kittie album. So what is your rating on them? Let me know in the comments. So yeah, guys, I'm sorry. I did not like this album. The reason why I decided to go back to is because some people said how good the new Kittie album is. And I'm going to be honest. I'm sorry. It's a step down from their previous album, to tell you the truth. Pretty much Kittie's entire discography is basically one album's good, and the next album is bad, and then the next album's good, and then the next album's bad. That's pretty much what their entire discography is like, to tell you the truth. So, yeah. I compare this to, like, OTEP, except it's less bad. That's how I compare Kittie to. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was never a big fan of Kittie, to tell you the truth. I never grew up listening to them, so... Yeah, guys, I didn't grow up with them, so... Yeah, the only time I would go back to Kittie is those 2 albums I like, which is Until the End and what's the other album? Let me look. Until the End and In the Black. Yeah, 2 albums. It's only 2 albums I like is Until the End and In the Black. That's literally it. And I felt it was somewhat decent, but I wouldn't see myself going back to it. The rest is either meh or shit. That's how it is. So, yeah, guys, not the biggest fan of them. So, anyways, guys, that's the video. And I'm going to go ahead and get the fuck out of here. So, I'm out.